Wait. Hold on 1 second. I just want to mention a thing or two before you yell at me about the Dallas Stars losing. Number one, I said I have no problem with taking the Golden Knights at +1.5 because every single team you would have taken at +1.5 in both series, every game would have covered, including last night. Number two, about those props that I gave you. Shea Theodore, over 1.5 shots. Jonathan Marchessault, under 3.5 shots. Riley Smith, under 2.5 shots. So between the props and the fact that I okayed Vegas +1.5, and then the clenched ass cheeks, although this was not a clenched ass cheeks variety, yet another under in this conference finals. Unders. And what are we going to do tonight? We're going to go over. Get the hell out of here. You think we would ever go over? How often do you have somebody on one of these Bobrovsky type, J.S. Gagarin 2003 type runs, and then you say, oh, you know what? I bet you the next one's just going to be an explosive game. Anything can happen, but I'm never going to be the one to predict a goalie just getting off a complete hot streak when he's in the type of rhythm that he's in. And it's not like Anderson's playing bad. Look at his numbers and look at the way he's playing. So obviously, I'm going to start you off the same way all these conference finals games should start off, and that's with a nice, fresh under in a closeout game. If Florida has a lead, they're going to try to lock everything down. If Carolina has a lead, they're going to try to lock everything down because goals are at a premium. But more importantly, the determining factor in this game, for me, personally, I'll tell you about after I remind you that on Caesars, your first bet's risk-free up to $12.50. $1,250. You place a bet. You would have bet on the Stars last night. You lost that $12.50. But if you're a new user over 21 and located in a state or province where sports betting is permitted, that bet would have been risk-free, meaning you had a $1,250 bet credit to use. You would have thrown it on that under tonight, and you would have been a winner. But make sure that you don't have a gambling problem, because if you do, call 1-800-GAMBLER and someone will help you out with that. So as far as the deciding factor, the determining factor for me in this game, even though it's not going to change my bet, but in terms of the team that I would pick to win, is Alex Barkov. You guys know how high I am on Barkov as a player. I think just because of where he plays and his type of personality, he's just never going to really get the accolades. He's like, for me, in terms of disrespect, he's like a Pavel Datsyuk light. He's not quite the unbelievable level that Datsyuk is, but he's just a hair under that. And more importantly, for the way Carolina plays, if there's just one line that they could focus on and shut that down, that's going to be Slavin and that Stahl line out there every time Tkachuk's there. And you've seen how the multiple lines have shined at different times throughout this series. And when you take Barkov off that line, and then it allows them to focus on the Tkachuk line. Now, granted, you know, in these 1-0 games, all it takes is a power play goal like last game, and that could be the determining factor. But when you couple the fact that these goalies are playing extremely well, with Barkov potentially not being in the game, I'm going to take that under 5.5. And what are we doing every single day now? We're taking whoever's +1.5. And in this case, it's the Carolina Hurricanes. So give me the Hurricanes at +1.5. You can do a puck line total combo where you take them +1.5, under 5.5. That will get you them at plus money. I also saw that if you take both teams under 3.5 goals, meaning no one gets to 4, and at this point I don't even know why you would think anyone gets to 4, and Carolina +1.5, that gets you +160 or +170 in that ballpark. So there's some good wiggly variations to get the Hurricanes at +1.5 and a good price with that. You can obviously go over to Caesars Sportsbook and combine them +1.5, but stay away from all player point props, because what if this is another 1-0 game? Instead, focus on guys getting pucks to the net. If you take Aho or if you take Natchez, you know in a desperation game they're going to be getting pucks to the net, so you can take Carolina +1.5 with either one of those players. That's an option. As far as an additional player prop that I like, if there's going to be no Barkov, I'm going to look at his line mates and I'm going to take the under on them registering a point, whether that's Carter Verhaeghe or Duclair. Duclair looked infinitely less effective without Barkov on that line. It seems like Barkov always knows kind of how to spring him on those stretch passes. If you ever see where Duclair's kind of trying to linger behind the defense and stretch out the whole team defense in general. Well, now they got a shooter, a speedster, but there's no distributor on that line, so it's going to be interesting to see how they integrate those guys. Now, remember, this is all predicated on Barkov not playing, but my guess is if he left that game, didn't continue, something tells me he's going to have to sit out one at least. I mean, they have a 3-0 lead in the series. I don't understand why they would rush him back, but if that is the case, I will take the under half of a point for Anthony Duclair. Now, I'm going to end you with some plus 900 bets. Yes, that's right. And what we're going to do, because, I mean, I don't see this one, anything can happen. But when you're looking at these last couple of games, goals are just not coming easy to either of these teams at this point. I want to take Florida to win or Carolina to win. Like, I want to put a couple on both. 60-minute bet, under 3.5 total. Those odds are at plus 900 for Florida, plus 950. So if you put a couple of shekels on both sides, I think it's worth it, because this one, unless, I don't know, something unexpected happens, but if Anderson and Bobrovsky's in there, honestly, I'm not sure that I see more than 3 goals total going in. So I will sprinkle a couple there. And that is what I have for you here on this Wednesday, this deciding Game 4. I also don't mind, by the way, these games are so low scoring, I don't care how good he is. I'm going to take the under 1.5 points on Matthew Tkachuk, and it's not a great price, which is why I didn't really mention it, because, you know, they have it at 1.5. 1.5 is just too much for anybody. I don't care if Wayne Gretzky came back. I'm taking the under 1.5 in this series, so that's another one that you could add on to the list. But that is what I have for you here on this Wednesday. Good luck to you. Better luck to me. We'll see what happens here. I really do think Barkov is that determining factor. Hockey sweeps don't happen often, as the Western Conference Final had a sweep last year, but there was a big disparity in talent in that series. There hasn't been one sweep all playoffs long. And now all of a sudden in the conference finals, when you should be getting the most competitive teams, that's when you're finally getting the sweeps. It's a perfect next chapter in this absurd NHL playoff season. And don't kid yourself, it is absolutely absurd. And with that said, make sure you subscribe to the Odd Shopper channel. Come follow me on social media. It's at Andy Francis on all social media platforms. And I'll be back with you tomorrow to talk about another possible sweep. Hopefully this series gets continued. I don't want it to be sweep and a sweep. And we'll see what happens tomorrow. How disgusting was that Jamie Benn cross-check, by the way? Down 2-0 in this series. What a way to ruin it for your team. Anyway, hopefully we are back to see another Game 5 in that series. But we'll talk about that tomorrow. I will see you.